Today's lesson is on resumes and interviews. We are entering our unit on vocational vocabulary, so over the next few months, we're going to focus solely on important terms that you'll encounter when you are applying for jobs, when you're working at a job, and just in general, things that are related to work and employment. All right, so resumes and interviews. Well, what's a resume? I'm sure you've heard that word a few times now, and you'll hear it a lot more since you're in high school. And so, what a resume is, it's a paper or electronic document that lists your experiences and qualifications as it relates to getting a job. And so, this piece of paper basically lists out all of your experiences. It includes things like your work objectives, so what job you want and why, your educational history, where you went to school, your work history. A lot of you guys probably won't have work history in the sense that you've worked previous jobs. A lot of you are writing a resume for your first job. And so, in lieu of or in place of your work history, you might put down your volunteer history, any extracurricular experiences that you participated in, if you did clubs or if you were involved in organizations on campus. Um, for students in our program, we will have work experience down, but it'll be in structured work settings in our classroom. So it'll be like simulated job experiences, which is totally okay to put down for your resume. And so again, it's just qualifications that make you ideal for a job. Okay, why? When an employer looks at this document, they're looking at the the likelihood that they'll employ you. Okay, are you a good fit for this job? Do you have the experiences that necessitate that help facilitate the skills that you'll need to accomplish this job? And so here's an example resume. This is a high school student resume. Again, you won't have a work history for the most part, um, unless you're in our autism program, and then you will have a work history, but it'll be within the school setting. Okay. And so you can list that under major achievements or additional skills. And so you'll have your personal information, right? You want to have your contact information so that when they see the resume, they know how to get in touch with you if they would like to hear more from you or invite you to the second stage of the job application process, right? After you've submitted your resume and your job application, that would be the interview. And so when you're writing a resume, there's a lot of really important tips. Um, just keep in mind what do you want to do? What are your goals? What's your purpose? What are you passionate about? What skills do you have that make you really excited? Why do you want to do what you want to do? So the cool thing about writing resumes is that there are a lot of online platforms and templates where you can type your information into, and so you don't have to start from scratch. There are quite a few, and we're going to go over some when we have our actual class session. And so when you go to these websites, or even if you open up a Word document, I believe that you can search in the database of templates, and there should be a sample resume. And so you can look at it and you can modify it to fit your needs. And so that's a really good starting place. But one thing you want to do is just begin by brainstorming. What have you done so far and what you like to do? Are there any classes or activities that you feel you do particularly well in? And most importantly, make sure to be truthful. It's so easy and tempting to want to say that we can do more than we can actually do, or to want to maybe fluff up our skills or experiences. But it's important to be truthful, because if we do get hired for this job, we want to be able to properly carry out our job responsibilities. And so if we lie on our resume and say that we can do things that we actually can't, um, we won't hold that job that we get for very long. Okay. So using the right resume words, highlighting your strengths, quantifying your accomplishments. So putting them into objective terms that potential employers can look up to make sure, like, oh, did you really do these things? That they can fact check, okay, that these are truthful experiences that you've had. All right, so You've submitted your job application and your resume, and now you are asked to come in for an interview. So, what's an interview? A job interview is a formal meeting between a business and a potential employee, and it's in order to get to know the employee and see if they're a good fit for a job position. So during the interview, the employer asks you questions or they provide you sample scenarios that you have to work through. And so you have to respond to the questions in a thoughtful and informed way. And it's a lot of what you have on your resume. So I wouldn't say memorize your resume because it's your experiences, right? You don't need to memorize your experiences. You've already done them. But definitely, you want to sound informed. You want to be as polished as possible when you're giving your responses so that the potential employer knows that you really put a lot of thought and effort into just into whatever that you decide to pursue. All right. So thankfully, just like there are online platforms that we can look up to see how to write resumes, there's a pretty fair amount of common interview questions that you'll likely encounter during your job interview. And it's things like, what interests you about this job? What are your goals for the future? What can you do for this company, right? What do you bring to the table? How do you handle stress and pressure? That's a big one. Um, what is your biggest strength and your biggest weakness? That's also another important question. Being able to be self-aware and know what you bring to the table, but also important areas that you need to improve in. And you don't have to, say anything super personal, but you definitely want to make your answers as relatable to the job as possible. Okay. So if you're applying to work at, say, a fast food restaurant, what are your biggest strengths? If you are really good at communicating, say that. If you're great with working with other people, awesome, tell them that. If that's an area of weakness for you, say that's something that you would like to improve on and that you would like to gain additional experience in working with others in a fast-paced environment, or that you have good communication skills, but you're always open to refining them further. Okay, so turning our weaknesses into areas for improvement and that we are willing to work on is really important during an interview. So what to expect? Honestly, in the current climate, so your job interview, it might be held in person. And if it is, you might have to wear a face mask, or it might be virtually. A lot more job interviews now are conducted over computer, over the phone, over Zoom. And so you might interview with the owner of the company and you might interview with the manager of the company. It really just depends. You might even just interview with a hiring coordinator from HR. When you are in your interview, regardless of whether it's over the computer or in person, you want to make sure to dress for success. So dress business or business casual. Be prepared to answer questions about yourself, why you want the job, what makes you qualified or a good candidate for the job. Practice interviewing beforehand. Be confident, be polite, and leaving a thank you note is always a very thoughtful thing to do after the fact. And it leaves that little impression that you are just very considerate and that you are appreciative of the opportunity even to come into interview. So when you interview, it'll typically last between 10 to 30 minutes. I would say longer interviews are better just because it shows more interest, but that just because you finish your job interview in 10 minutes doesn't automatically mean, oh, I didn't get it. Sometimes an employer already knows you're the person we want, and they don't want to, elongate the process more than is necessary. And afterwards, it's polite to ask questions of the business. All right, so preparing for a job interview, just know the company position that you're applying for. So what are the job requirements? What are some typical work scenarios you might encounter, and how might you respond to that? Practice introducing yourself and answering basic questions about your background and previous experiences with a friend, a relative, a teacher, a peer. Definitely know the location of the business where you'll be interviewing at. So if it's in person, you want to practice going there. That way, the day of, you don't get lost. And if it's over Zoom, just make sure that you have the Zoom information available. What's the meeting ID number, as well as the password if there is one. and prepare your outfit the night before. That way you are not stressing out about what to wear. It's already planned out for you. That's one less thing to worry about. And so at the conclusion of your interview, it's definitely okay to ask, um, when can I expect, or when can candidates expect to hear from you guys, and how what how long are you guys holding the position open before you notify people that you found the person, okay, and just expecting to hear back from them. That's totally polite. And so we'll practice this more during our class period.